we finally get the truth on the real reason behind the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game shutdown, and it's directly from Gun Interactive CEO Wes Keltner himself. Wes opens up and goes deep into the reasoning behind the decision of TCM not receiving future content for the first time since the announcement was made. The game didn't really reach its full potential. This is the real reason. The first taste of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game we got was during the test play on May 25th, 2023. The playtest was so well received and the anticipation was higher than ever before, until the game was released on August 18th, 2023. But almost 2 years later, we received news that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game will not be receiving any further content or support. This was a major heartbreaker for so many people and seemed like it came out of nowhere. The reason for this decision that was given in their community post for the announcement was they felt the game had, quote, reached its full potential. Gun received a ton of blowback for this, and the reasoning just didn't feel like it was the entire truth. But we have it now. Gun CEO Wes Keltner opens up about what really happened with TCM and the real reason behind the shutdown. There's not much more for me to say, and we've been wondering and waiting for the real truth for almost a year now, so we're not going to wait any longer. Let's hear what Wes had to say, and we'll sum it all up after.
Well, we would never limit authenticity. We spent a lot of money on motion capture.
Okay.
And what we found was that that didn't seem to be as appreciated. And I don't mean like we were getting attaboys. I don't mean that. Like it wasn't like the fans saying good job. That's not what I'm asking. I'm saying like it just didn't seem like that mattered as much to have like bespoke animations. Bespoke meaning like each killer had its own unique set of animations and personality and movement types and attacks and like all that kind of stuff that we thought was important. Like we think that's important. But the cost and time to do it was significant to do that and pull that off. We had as this almost the same kind of sophisticated animations you'd find in a single player game. We were putting in a multiplayer, asymmetric horror game. And that's just, we were always trying to push the bar more and more and more every time we make a game to get better at our craft, to be able to use new tools and understand how to bring, performances and the world of, whatever film we're given, how we bring that to life to the player. And, when we were sketching this out on a dry erase board, a year before we even started writing, working with Sumo on the code for Texas, it was like one of the big sections or buckets or whatever you want to call it was like animation. And we were like, this needs to look incredible. Mm-hmm. And it was just very, very costly. And that then puts you in a spot where you have to continue if you're still making new characters, henceforth in the game, in the life cycle of the game, that bar has already been set. And you need to have incredible teams around you that can continue to deliver, because, we aren't animators. Gun, we don't write a single line of code in this office.
Right.
That's our partners that we work with on it. We're writing the design, we're giving the direction, we're handling the authenticity, we're handling the motion capture sessions, and we're directing VO, and we're, all the aspects that go into making a game. It's just none of us here are programmers or engineers. That's where we find the help to get us to bring that, something like that to fruition. So you always need to have, access to incredible teams that can pull that vision off.
Sure.
And so it's making sure that in the future when we're making these titles that we're keeping things in check in terms of costs. We kept seeing the cost of everything we were making going up. And I would say, the quality wasn't necessarily matching that, in some instances going backwards. Some of that can come from downsizing. There's just, the industry as a whole right now is not in a good spot. So that becomes difficult. If I take off my fan hat and I just put on like, I'm a CEO trying to keep, the boat afloat here. When you start looking at those costs ballooning year over year, when you set the bar so high in the past, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is going to get so expensive that just the simple math of this, it's not starting to add up. And at the same time, if the quality's not where we'd already set the bar, I wouldn't want that if I was the player, where it's like, well, this isn't as good as this other thing, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
Like this, that doesn't make sense. Like I wouldn't want that. I would feel like you were trying to take advantage of me or something if I was, the player. So
of course,
it's making sure we're making those right decisions in the future. And, that's one of the facets where, me as the leader here, like I dropped the ball on that. Like we set the bar too high. And I guess, I couldn't have predicted that coming out of COVID, which is, when we're in the thick of all the mocap and doing all the animation work, that our industry would do what it did, and that we would see, animation costs balloon in some instances close to 50% more money than it cost before. And I'm talking like within a 2-quarter run,
Wow.
Yeah. That's crazy to think in 6 months, it's now, 50% more expensive to make the same thing you just made 6 months ago. You're like, why?
Talking about years of inflation sandwiched into 6 months. Yeah. That's crazy.
While studios are collapsing, every other day, and teams that you worked with are not there. And so there was a lot of things that taught me some lessons that while authenticity is always going to be an important pillar here, as is creativity, but you do have to put like a cap on that at some point. And with Texas, we kind of ran uncapped for a long time because we were running on sheer creativity and running sheer on like wanting the killers in that game to be able to have such a personality, both in their visual silhouette as well as how they move, act, talk, and kill. That was a very big motivating thing for our team, because we were, when someone hands you the keys to an IP like that, and you get to work alongside Kim Hinkle, who made those original characters. Yeah, it's such a creative high to be in those meetings.
Like getting the keys to a Ferrari,
yeah, right. Yeah, right. And both of you are kind of feeding off of each other of like what these characters could be and how do you bring them to life through this interactive experience, and then translating that in the mocap volume, and then working with actors that they know how to act, and they start to bring their own unique performance. You're like, I didn't think of it that way, and you kind of run with that, and you end up booking the mocap room for a couple more days because there was some secret sauce that was starting to happen with this character, and it's just those kind of things that I let run probably longer than they should have, but I don't dislike what we made. I think I would always like point to Texas as in terms of what those characters look like and moved and how they spoke, and even the like fact that when one killer gets around a different killer or a different victim, it's like different lines are called up so that there's a personality. It's like it's almost like they kind of knew each other, or they know they're around each other, and so they're saying these specific lines to each other. Like all that stuff costs money, obviously, to do, and we were just swinging much bigger than we did when we had almost no budget when we made Friday the 13th. So, it's a lesson learned, of you can't just operate on sheer, sort of creative juices and just go, I will figure it out. The budget can go a little higher. We'll figure it out. That's not, being a very responsible leader in that capacity. So, that's what I meant in that interview. Gotcha. When someone talked about sort of like, what would you do in the future? It's like, I need a better structure on like, no, that's the budget you're spending for animation. You don't get another nickel,
So does this information change anything? No. But does it offer some important clarity? Absolutely. The gaming industry as a whole has been in decline for a while now. Layoffs, games, and even entire companies shutting down, in and outside of the horror genre. This is affecting the entire industry. And people need to realize these games are a business run by companies with real people working for them. As much as we, as players, enjoy playing our favorite video games, we have to remove the gamer lens we have on and remember this is a business and money is needed to keep a business alive so that people have jobs to put food on their family's table. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre game was not generating enough money to continue production on new characters, maps, content in general, without downsizing and causing layoffs at Gun. Wes made the decision to move on from something that wasn't working and to try something new and ensure he can keep his team and make sure people stay employed. And I'm not sure how anyone could be mad at that.